Have you ever stood knee-deep in freezing water, staring at a completely lifeless river, while furiously trying to decide which microscopic bug to tie on? It is completely crazy, right? Yet almost every single one of us does it. We are obsessed with matching the hatch. But here is a question that might ruffle a few feathers. Does matching the hatch in early spring matter at all, when there is literally no hatch to match? Today, we are going to talk about why the oldest rule in fly fishing is completely ruining your early season success. I am going to show you why doing the exact opposite of what the old books tell you will actually put more fish in your net when the water is cold. By the end of this video, you are going to look at your beautifully organized fly box in a completely different way. So, tell me down in the comments before we start, how many times have you been skunked in March because you refused to tie on something ugly? Let us get into it. For generations, fishermen have been brainwashed by a very romantic idea. The idea is that fly fishing is a delicate game of chess. You observe the bugs, you select the perfect imitation, you make a flawless cast, and you fool a highly intelligent fish. And sure, on a warm summer evening, that is exactly how it works. But this ideology has been pounded into our heads so hard that we blindly apply it to every single month of the year. We have this deep-seated belief that if we are not imitating a specific natural insect, we are somehow cheating or doing it wrong. Grandpas and old fishing guides passed down this strict code of honor. But let us be brutally honest. In early spring, the water temperature is hovering just above freezing. There are no bugs in the air. The rocks are bare. The fish are practically comatose at the bottom of the deepest pools. Yet, fishermen will stubbornly freeze their fingers off trying to tie on a size 20 midge, hoping to unlock a puzzle that does not exist. We do this year after year because breaking away from tradition feels wrong. But the truth is, the fish do not care about tradition. They only care about survival. Let us paint a picture that you know all too well. It is a Saturday morning in early March. You are standing on the bank of your favorite river. The air is incredibly crisp. The coffee in your thermos is still piping hot, and your fingers are already going a little bit numb. You look at the water, waiting to see those familiar rings on the surface. You wait 5 minutes. You wait 10 minutes. Half an hour goes by. The surface is completely undisturbed. It looks like a pane of dark glass. There is absolutely no hatch happening. Nothing is flying around your head. Nothing is crawling on the rocks. Yet, what is the very first thing you do? You open up your fly box and start squinting at tiny little nymphs and dry flies, trying to figure out what to tie on. You have been conditioned by magazines and old fishing tales to match the hatch. But my friend, what exactly are you trying to match right now? The water is almost freezing. The bugs are asleep. The fish are pinned to the bottom. If there is no hatch to match, why are you stressing over whether to tie on a size 18 pheasant tail or a size 20 hare ear? This is the ultimate early spring trap. We waste precious hours trying to imitate ghost insects instead of fishing to the reality of the river. The reality is simple. The fish are cold, they are hungry, and they do not care about a hatch that will not happen for another month. Let us talk about that stubborn guy on the river. Maybe that guy is actually you. You wade into the freezing current. The water temperature is maybe 38 degrees. Your legs are instantly chilled through your waders. You stand there shivering, and you start digging through your vest. You pull out that beautiful aluminum box filled with meticulously tied dry flies and delicate nymphs. You spent all winter at the tying vise, sipping whiskey and crafting these perfect little works of art. You want to use them so badly. You want the old books to be right. You tie on a perfectly proportioned mayfly nymph. You cast it into a seam, mend your line, and watch your indicator drift. Nothing happens. You do it again. Still nothing. You spend the next 3 hours changing flies every 15 minutes. You are playing a guessing game with an opponent who is not even on the playing field yet. The fish are down in the deep pools, glued to the bottom, trying to conserve every ounce of energy they have. They are not looking at the specific segmentation of your fly body. They do not care that you use genuine hare ear dubbing. By stubbornly sticking to the idea that you must match a specific insect, you are completely ignoring what the river is actually telling you. And the river is telling you that traditional rules simply do not apply today. To understand why matching the hatch fails right now, you have to understand cold water fish biology. It is actually very simple science. Trout and other river fish are cold-blooded. When the water temperature drops below 45 degrees, their metabolism basically slams on the brakes. They become incredibly sluggish. They are not swimming around actively hunting for food like they do in June. They find a slow, deep pool where they do not have to fight the current, and they sit there like couch potatoes. Now think about this logically. If you are freezing cold and trying to conserve energy, are you going to sprint across the room for a single peanut? Of course not. That burns more calories than you gain. So why do we expect a lethargic trout to move 3 feet out of its way to eat a microscopic-sized 22 midge larva that gives it almost zero nutritional value? When fish are in this state, they will only open their mouths if something drifts directly into their face, or if something is so big and calorie-dense that it is worth the effort to move. Your perfect little imitation of a tiny mayfly nymph is a peanut. The fish sees it, does the math, and decides it is absolutely not worth the effort to swim over and eat it. This brings us to the great equalizer of early spring fishing, the attractor pattern, or, as the purists angrily call them, junk flies. I am talking about squirmy wormies, mop flies, egg patterns, and bright pink blobs. If you walk into a traditional fly shop and ask for these, the old guy behind the counter might roll his eyes at you. But let me tell you a secret. When there is no hatch to match, junk flies are absolute killers. Why? Because they do not look like any specific bug. They look like a loud, obnoxious chunk of protein. Imagine sitting in a quiet, dark room, half asleep. Suddenly, a bright neon sign starts flashing in front of you. You are going to look at it. You might even swat at it. That is what an attractor fly does to a sleepy trout. It demands attention. A bright red squirmy worm tumbling along the river bottom stands out against the dark rocks. It wiggles, it flashes, and it annoys the fish into striking. You are no longer trying to fool them with a perfect imitation. You are triggering a predatory instinct. You are forcing a reaction bite. And on days when the water is totally dead, a reaction bite is often the only bite you are going to get. We really need to break down the myth of Grandpa's golden rules. We all grew up reading the same classic literature about fly fishing. We were taught that trout are highly educated scholars with a master's degree in entomology. We were told that if your fly has 3 tail fibers instead of 2, the trout will laugh at you and swim away. That romantic notion is wonderful for selling books and expensive fly tying materials, but it is largely a myth, especially in the early season. Modern observation, underwater cameras, and tournament anglers have completely shattered this illusion. Fish are opportunistic predators, not art critics. When a trout is hungry after a long, lean winter, it does not inspect your fly for anatomical correctness. It looks at 3 things: size, shape, and behavior. If it fits in their mouth and looks somewhat edible, they will eat it. The older generation swore by exact imitations because that was the style of the time. But if you want to catch fish today, you need to stop worrying about what Grandpa said and start observing what the fish are actually doing. And right now, they are ignoring your perfect tiny flies. Let us talk more about the concept of calories in cold water. In the fishing world, we often call this the steak versus salad theory. Think about a bear coming out of hibernation. Is it going to look for a few berries, or is it going to try and find a massive calorie-dense meal? Fish operate on the same logic in early spring. They have been surviving on the bare minimum for months. When they finally decide to eat, they want a steak. A tiny dry fly or a micro nymph is a side salad. It takes too much effort for too little reward. But a big, ugly, heavy stonefly nymph? That is a steak. A massive black woolly bugger slowly drifting past their nose? That is a ribeye. When there is no hatch, you should immediately upsize your flies. Stop trying to be delicate. Throw something that has some meat to it. Give that fish a reason to open its mouth. Even if there are no big stoneflies active in the river at that exact moment, a trout recognizes that shape as a high-calorie meal. They will remember what a big meal tastes like, and their instinct will take over. Big flies move slow, lethargic fish. Small flies get ignored. One of the hardest things about early spring is reading the water. When a massive hatch is happening in the summer, the fish tell you exactly where they are. You see a nose break the surface, you cast to that spot, and you catch the fish. It is almost too easy. But in early spring, the surface is completely blank. The river is keeping all of its secrets hidden. Because there is no hatch to bring them up, you have to play detective. You have to understand where a fish goes when it does not want to work hard. You need to ignore the fast riffles and the bubbly pocket water where you caught them last August. Right now, those spots are totally empty. Instead, look for the deep, dark, slow-walking speed water. Look for the inside bends of the river. Look for deep drop-offs where the current slows down to a crawl. The fish are stacked up in these wintering holes, sitting shoulder to shoulder. Since there are no bugs drifting down the feeding lanes, the fish have no reason to be in the feeding lanes. You have to bring the food directly to their bedroom. If you are casting where you usually cast in the summer, you are fishing over totally empty water. There is a debate that has raged in fly shops for decades. What matters more, the fly you choose or the way you present it? In early spring, when there is no hatch, presentation beats imitation 100% of the time. I will say it again so it sinks in. A perfectly drifted ugly fly will beat a badly drifted perfect fly every single day of the week. You can have the most realistic, beautifully tied mayfly nymph in the world, but if it is dragging unnaturally through the water, or if it is floating 2 feet above the fish's head, they will not touch it. On the other hand, you can tie on a piece of bright pink yarn on a hook. If you get that yarn down right on the bottom, and drift it perfectly at the exact speed of the current, right into the fish's face, they will eat it. When the water is cold, fish will not move far to chase your fly. Your drift has to be absolutely flawless. You need to hit them right on the nose. Stop obsessing over which fly is in your box, and start obsessing over your drift, your mending, and your depth. That is where the real secret lies. Because the river is so quiet and lifeless right now, you need to find a way to wake the fish up. Natural bugs in early spring do not make a lot of noise or vibration, but your flies absolutely should. When you cannot match a hatch, you need to create a disturbance. This is where flies with rubber legs, flashy dubbing, and hot spots become incredibly valuable. Think about a big heavy Pat's rubber legs nymph tumbling along the rocks. Those rubber appendages are constantly wiggling, sending out tiny micro vibrations into the water. The fish can feel that with their lateral lines before they even see it. It triggers their curiosity. Or think about a nymph with a bright orange bead head. In dark, deep water, that flash catches the limited sunlight and acts like a beacon. You are not imitating a natural insect anymore. You are playing on the fish's senses. You want your fly to say, "Hey, I am right here. Come look at me." When the natural world is asleep, a little bit of flash and vibration is often exactly what you need to flip the switch from a slow day into an amazing day. Let us take a moment to talk about ego. Fishing ego is a very real thing, and it ruins a lot of good fishing days. Many anglers feel a deep sense of embarrassment tying on a mop fly or a squirmy worm. They look around the river to make sure nobody is watching them. They feel like they are betraying the art of fly fishing. But you know who does not care about your pride? The fish. The fish do not give a single damn about your ego. They do not judge you for catching them on a brightly colored piece of chenille. They are just trying to survive in freezing water. If you want to stand waist deep in an icy river all day looking like a purist while catching absolutely nothing, that is your choice. But if you want to feel that tug on the end of your line, you need to get over yourself, swallow your pride, put away the tiny dry flies, tie on the ugly junk fly, get it down deep, and start catching fish. The only person judging you on the river is yourself. And trust me, fighting a heavy winter trout is a lot more fun than standing around with a dry net protecting your ego. Now, I know exactly what some of you are shouting at the screen right now. You are saying, "Wait a minute, midges hatch in the winter and early spring." And you are absolutely right. Midges do hatch in cold water. You might even see a few of them buzzing around the edges of the river on a mild afternoon. But here is the massive misconception about the microhatch. Just because a few midges are hatching does not mean the biggest fish in the river are actively targeting them. Yes, tiny trout might rise to sip a size 24 midge, but the big, lazy, smart fish, they are staying down deep. They know that rising through 4 feet of cold water to eat a speck of dust is a terrible return on investment. So while you are freezing your hands trying to thread 6x tippet through a microscopic hook eye to catch a 6-inch fish, the guy downstream dragging a heavy stonefly on the bottom is hooking into a 20-inch monster. Just because you see a bug does not mean it is the main food source. Do not get distracted by the micro-hatch myth. Another massive factor that makes matching the hatch totally useless right now is water clarity. Early spring is notorious for dirty water. Snow starts melting, spring rains arrive, and the river suddenly turns the color of chocolate milk. Or at the very least, it gets that murky, chalky green stain to it. When visibility drops to less than 2 feet, delicate little natural imitations become entirely invisible. If a fish cannot see your size 18 olive nymph, it cannot eat it. In these conditions, silhouette and contrast are the only things that matter. You need flies that push water and cast a strong shadow. A big black woolly bugger or a dark brown leech pattern stands out beautifully in muddy water. The dark silhouette provides a sharp contrast against the cloudy background. When there is no hatch and the water is dirty, you are fishing by braille. You need to give the fish a massive target to lock onto. Throwing tiny, natural-looking bugs into muddy spring water is like turning off the lights in a room and trying to find a drop needle. It is a total waste of your time. Here is a fascinating behavioral trait of trout that traditional hatch matching completely ignores: territorial aggression. Fish do not only eat because they are hungry. Sometimes they attack things simply because they are pissed off. In early spring, big fish claim the best, deepest resting spots. They will defend that spot from intruders. If you strip a large, flashy streamer right past the nose of a resting brown trout, it might not want to eat it, but it might attack it just to get it out of its living room. This is a reaction strike. You are invading its personal space with something annoying. A perfectly matched mayfly drifting by does not trigger a territorial response. It is just another piece of debris. But a heavy, articulated streamer moving erratically, that is an intruder. When the water is completely devoid of hatching bugs, tapping into this aggressive instinct is an incredible strategy. You are not offering them lunch. You are picking a fight, and often the biggest fish in the river are more than happy to oblige you. So put down the delicate rod, pick up the heavy gear, and start picking fights. Because there are no surface clues telling you where the fish are holding, adjusting your depth becomes the most critical part of your day. Most anglers will tie on a nymph, set their strike indicator at 4 feet, and fish that exact same setup for 6 hours. They change their fly 10 times, but they never change their depth. This is a fatal mistake when there is no hatch. Since the fish are not moving up or down in the water column to feed, you have to find exactly what level they are hovering at. They might be hugging the gravel right on the bottom. They might be suspended 2 feet off the bottom in a slow eddy. If your fly is passing above them, they will not rise to take it. Instead of constantly digging through your fly box for a different bug, try moving your indicator up or down a few inches. Try adding one more small split shot. Keep adjusting your depth until you find the strike zone. You will be amazed at how often a fly you thought was a dud suddenly starts catching fish just because you dropped it 6 inches deeper into their face. If there is one natural phenomenon you should be matching in early spring, it is not a bug, it is the sun. We call this the temperature spike window. In the dead of winter and early spring, the water is coldest in the morning. Fish are totally locked down. But if you have a bright sunny day, right around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the shallow water begins to warm up. Even if the water temperature only rises by 1 or 2 degrees, it is enough to wake the fish up from their slumber. This magical window might only last for 2 hours, but it is when 90% of the feeding happens. During this brief window, fish might slide out of the deep pools into slightly shallower water to soak up the sun and look for a meal. You do not need to match a hatch during this time. You just need to be in the right spot with a big meal ready to go. Timing your fishing day around this slight temperature bump is 1,000 times more important than what specific insect pattern you have tied to the end of your leader. Let us think outside the bug box for a minute. If there are no insects hatching, what else is living in that river? What else provides a massive amount of protein for a hungry predator? Bait fish, sculpins, and leeches. These creatures do not hatch. They are in the river all year long, and they live right down on the bottom where the big trout are currently hiding. While everyone else is busy trying to imitate a tiny aquatic insect that will not appear for another 6 weeks, you should be matching the meat. A heavy sculpin pattern stripped slowly across the bottom of a deep pool is irresistible to a big fish in cold water. A simple black rabbit strip leech drifting under an indicator is a deadly combination. These are food sources that the fish are actively hunting for when the bug life is dormant. Stop looking up at the air to see what is flying around and start thinking about what is slithering along the rocks. When you switch your mindset from imitating insects to imitating meat, your early season catch rate will skyrocket. Now, eventually, as spring progresses, you will hit that transition phase. This is the trickiest time of the year. The water warms up just enough, and suddenly you see a single mayfly drift past you. Your heart skips a beat. You think to yourself, finally, the hatch is here. You immediately snip off your heavy nymph rig and tie on a dry fly. You wait. You see another bug, but you do not see any fish rising. This is the danger of the false hatch. Just because a few pioneer bugs have decided to hatch early does not mean the fish have switched their feeding behavior yet. It takes time for the fish to realize the hatch is happening and to feel comfortable rising through the water column. Do not jump the gun. Until you see steady, consistent rising noses across the river, keep your heavy stuff on the bottom. Let the other guys waste their time casting dry flies to fish that are not looking up. Keep grinding the deep pools with your junk flies and big nymphs. Patience is key during this transition. Let us talk about the psychology of the angler. Confidence is the absolute best fly in your box. When you spend all morning second-guessing your fly choice because there is no hatch, you fish poorly, your casts get sloppy, your mends get lazy. You stop paying attention to your drift because you have convinced yourself that you have the wrong bug tied on. This lack of confidence transfers right down the rod and into the water. But when you tie on a fly that you absolutely believe in, even if it is an ugly mop fly, you fish it with intent. You focus on the depth. You watch the indicator like a hawk. You set the hook on every tiny twitch. Because there are no bugs to dictate what you should use, you have the freedom to fish whatever you are most confident in. Find that one heavy, ugly nymph or big streamer that has produced for you in the past, tie it on, and do not take it off. Fish it with absolute conviction. Confidence catches more early spring fish than any entomology book ever could. If you really want to learn how to catch fish when the water is totally dead, look at what the competitive fly fishing guys do. European nymphing competitors travel to unfamiliar rivers all over the world. They do not have time to sit on the bank, wait for a hatch, and delicately present a dry fly. They have to catch numbers, and they have to catch them right now. What do? They use heavy, flashy, generic bead head nymphs. They call them perdigons or searching patterns. They do not look like any specific bug in nature. They are just heavy, colorful weights with a hook. The competitors systematically dissect the water, bouncing these heavy flies right on the nose of the fish, forcing them to eat. They rely entirely on depth control, drift speed, and triggering a reaction. They completely ignore the old matching the hatch philosophy, and they catch 10 times more fish than the traditionalists standing next to them. Take a page out of their playbook. When the river is quiet, search the water aggressively. Do not wait for the fish to tell you what they want. Tell them what they are going to eat. It is time to completely redefine what matching the hatch actually means to us as modern anglers. Instead of trying to match a specific insect that might not even be there, we need to start matching the environment. We need to match the water temperature. We need to match the flow rate. We need to match the lethargic mood of the fish. If the water is freezing and deep, matching the environment means throwing heavy, obnoxious flies right onto the bottom. If the water is dirty, matching the environment means throwing dark, bulky silhouettes. You are no longer an entomologist trying to identify Latin names of bugs. You are a tactician adapting to the harsh conditions of early spring. When you finally let go of the need to have the perfect little imitation, a massive weight is lifted off your shoulders. You stop stressing over fly selection and start focusing on the actual mechanics of catching fish. The river is a completely different world in March than it is in July. It is time we start fishing like it. So, let us wrap this whole thing up. The ultimate truth is that clinging to the idea of matching the hatch in early spring is like trying to use a summer map to navigate a winter blizzard. It just does not work. The biggest plot twist in early season fishing is that doing everything wrong according to the old purist books is actually the exact right way to fish. By using ugly attractor patterns, throwing big calorie-dense junk flies, fishing obnoxiously deep, and targeting the fish's territorial instincts instead of their feeding habits, You completely change the game. You stop waiting for nature to give you a sign, and you start forcing the action yourself. Getting over the ego of traditional fly fishing is the greatest breakthrough you can make this season. I promise you, the trout do not care about the rules, and neither should you. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching today. If this video made you rethink your early spring strategy, hit that subscribe button right now so you do not miss our next breakdown. Drop a big like on the video to help the channel grow. And I want to hear from you down in the comments. Be totally honest with me. What is your absolute favorite ugly junk fly that you are secretly hiding in your fly box right now? Let us get a discussion going. I will see you all out on the water.